Tonight, a deadline 3 days away as three leaders try to strike a deal involving Russia, Ukraine, and the three-year war.
Everybody inside feels optimistic about what happened and transpired yesterday in Geneva.
Plus, why the War Department is threatening to court-martial a sitting United States senator. Elsewhere, is it the brink of war? Top military brass headed to the Caribbean as the Trump administration has a new message for Nicolas Maduro. Also this evening, case closed. James Comey and Letitia James with a major court win. Why the White House says they aren't giving up. And is DOJ done? How the Trump administration is now responding to claims of the agency's demise. But first tonight, Trump, Zelensky, Putin, and a deadline. Now, you probably have Thanksgiving travel, some turkey on your mind as well, but the White House is consumed now with trying to set the table for something else: peace. The president's top team in Geneva over the weekend, trying to hammer out a deal to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. And to show you how close this just might be to the finish line, the White House revealing today a surprise call with another major world power. Our Kelly Meyer has the very latest for us live tonight over at the White House, where there's a whole lot of issues still before the president this evening. Kelly.
Yeah, a busy day here at the White House, Blake, to say the least. President Trump is putting the pressure on both sides here to meet his Thanksgiving Day deadline. I'm told talks are happening around the clock, and the administration is engaging both sides. That was a question here today for the White House press secretary after some lawmakers criticized the plan for being too soft on Putin. Leavitt says the president is not favoring one side over the other.
The president's been putting a lot of pressure on both leaders for this entire time. We've been talking with both sides. He's been talking to both leaders directly for 10 months now. So, yes, you can expect that pressure to continue. The president wants this war to end.
And Ukrainian President Zelensky tonight saying Ukraine will never be an obstacle to peace and promised to discuss the sensitive issues with President Trump. Russian President Putin says U.S. proposals for peace in Ukraine could be the basis of a resolution to the conflict. But if Kyiv turned it down, Russian forces would advance further. And no meeting set between President Trump and President Zelensky. But things change very quickly around here, Leavitt said. Blake.
And Kelly, we also learned today that the president spoke with the Chinese leader, President Xi Jinping. Normally, there's a lot of discussion going into this of when they might talk, and all of a sudden, bang, it just happened like that.
Yeah, kind of a surprise here on Monday morning. The White House says that call wasn't so much focused on the war in Ukraine, though it did come up. The main focus, we're told, was trade. Caroline Leavitt said both leaders are moving in a positive direction on that. The president posted on Truth Today with his own readout of the call, saying the two talked about fentanyl, soybeans, and farmers. President Trump called the relationship with China, quote, extremely strong. We're told that call lasted about an hour and was, quote, very positive. The president also confirmed he will visit Beijing in April and host Xi in the U.S. later this year. The president said they do plan to keep in touch. Blake.
All right, Kelly Meyer, live for us tonight over at 1600. Kelly, thank you. Joining us now, retired three-star Air Force General Richard Newton, NewsNation senior national security contributor. General, thanks for being with us tonight. There is a lot going on in the world as we start off this week. Of course, there's the White House trying to put together this peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. We saw this meeting in Geneva over the weekend, Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff there. Where do you think we are tonight?
Well, good evening, Blake. Good to be with you. And you and Connell are going back and forth. There's no coasting this week on Thanksgiving week. There are a lot of big moments, as Kelly was underscoring in her clip there. I think where we are right now is I think there's really major issues that are trying to be resolved from the president's 28-point plan. I'm hearing it may be down to 19 points. There are certainly a number of sticking points from Ukraine's perspective. First being security guarantees, and then certainly capping their military forces, NATO membership, and then there's this issue of territory. And at least the original 28-point plan was to give Russia all of the Donbass region, which Ukraine still controls, a small percentage, about 11% of the Donbass. So, but let's keep it in perspective. The perspective is, I believe, the 28-point peace plan discussions that we're seeing now are really just a beginning. The president has called for a Thursday deadline, but I think we're going to go past that. But there's still a lot of points to be ironed out.
You don't think this is the middle or even close to the end?
I do not. I think we're going to see more play here. I think this is part of the President Trump's playbook. He did that with Israel and Gaza and so forth, and I think you're going to see him play out. He's trying to bring these parties to a successful conclusion, at least with regard to the killing. And I appreciate and I applaud the administration in doing so. We're talking hundreds of thousands of soldiers on each side, Blake, who've either been killed in action or wounded. And so that's really the president's aim here. However, as we've said, the devil's going to be in the details. And the challenge is, if you lean towards Russia, then Ukraine won't come to the table for any type of an agreement. If you lean towards Ukraine, then Russia, Putin will not go to the table either. So that's a challenge here. So lots of work ahead.
Here was the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, over the weekend.
We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take, 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done, but we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began.
Does it stand out to you at all that Xi Jinping and the president talked today? Is that Xi trying to get in a final word if they are making some sort of progress?
I think it may be the other way around. I think it may be President Trump trying to get some leverage out of President Xi.
How so?
But we're a lot. Yeah, I believe what he's trying to do is he's trying to compel Xi to perhaps convince or at least have discussions with Putin, what the U.S. position really is here and trying to provide that leverage. Whatever was joined in with their recent meeting, just a couple weeks or so ago, that we're seeing here in this video. He's trying to provide any leverage he possibly can to get Putin to the table. My jury is still out whether or not Putin will even come to the table at this point. But we're closer, I believe, to perhaps a maybe not a ceasefire, but a framework for a peace negotiated settlement here than we've been. However, and you have talked about this many times, it's the last mile of a 100-mile road is the most difficult part, and we're seeing that right now.
See that palm tree there behind you, wherever you might be this Thanksgiving week? Hope it's a great one, General. Lieutenant General Richard Newton with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Blake.
Catch you next week. All right. So how about this for a question tonight? Should the senator from Arizona be court-martialed? The Department of War essentially making that very threat today from Mark Kelly. He is one of the 6 Democratic lawmakers who appeared in this video last week, encouraging military service members to refuse what they view as illegal orders.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
Now, the commander-in-chief blasting that video as dangerous to the country. President Trump saying it is, quote, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Kelly, who's retired U.S. Navy and an astronaut, as you might know as well, responding today saying, quote, I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than protecting the Constitution. Ruben Gallegos, senator from Arizona, the fellow Democrat there, had a much more pointed response.
This is insane. We should always point out how insane this is. Mark Kelly's a patriot. There's no reason why they're going after him. He was doing his duty and just reminding people about their rights as service members.
Joining me now, California Congressman Kevin Kiley, back with us once again here on the Hill. Congressman, as I like to remind our audience, and thanks for being with us tonight, for those watching on News Nation or listening on Sirius XM, Yale Law, so you know a thing or two about the law. Let's start with the actions and the video. Do you believe that Mark Kelly crossed the line and his colleagues?
I did not like the video. I think that if you believe that there's some sort of illegal order or something that's being done that's not how it should be, then the way to challenge that is to actually go to court and get it adjudicated, rather than encouraging dissension or insubordination in our military. So no, I did not like the video, but I certainly haven't liked the response to it either.
So on the response, is a court-martial, a potential court-martial? What about that threat from the Department of War?
I have no idea. I honestly just saw this investigation is being done. That seems like that's a little extreme to think that that would happen to a sitting U.S. senator. And I'm not really sure what's being investigated because the statements are right there on the record in this video. So, unfortunately, this whole thing, you played the video there from the other senator who's using all kinds of expletives. We need to dial down the rhetoric in this country. We shouldn't be, going at each other like we're enemies. We should need to remember that we're all Americans here. We're all ultimately, in this together.
Here was the White House earlier today. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, responding. We'll pick it up on the other side.
Senator Mark Kelly well knows the rules of the military and the respect that one must have for the chain of command, and that all lawful orders are presumed to be legal by our service members. You can't have a functioning military if there is disorder and chaos within the ranks, and that's what these Democrat members were encouraging.
Is that, as you understand it, all orders must be viewed as lawful?
Well, it's like I said before, that if you want to challenge something, then the way to do that is through the appropriate channels. And there's channels within the military. There's channels within our legal system. I do think that she's correct that you can't just kind of make every single person, the judge of legality of each and every order, because, sometimes these are complicated questions. Sometimes you don't really have the luxury of pausing to write a memo on it if you're someone who's, who's serving. So I think that the gist of what she said is generally correct, which is why I didn't like the video that those representatives and the senator came out with. But again, this whole thing, I don't like how it's been handled by either side. I think it's served to underscore why so many people are disenchanted with our political system.
Do you think the White House? Do you think the White House should even be dealing with this? Do they have other things that you would like them to focus on?
Well, certainly there's no shortage of things to focus on. I mean, I think that it's certainly appropriate to say what I've just said, that we have channels that exist within our system of government for challenging things that don't abide by the Constitution, but that at the same time, the authority of the president as commander-in-chief and those who work for him is important to respect in order to have a military that can keep Americans safe. So that's the way I would handle it. That's what I think should be said, and I think that would send the right message.
We'll leave it there. Kevin Kiley, Republican from California, with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. Cases dismissed. A judge tosses out indictments against President Trump's foes. James Comey, Letitia James, but the White House says this fight is far from over. We'll explain. Plus, the Caribbean conflict. We are live tonight in Puerto Rico as the U.S. ramps up military drills near Venezuela, as action against that country looks closer than ever. Plus this.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
You remember that, right? He promised to take a chainsaw to government spending, but Elon Musk's Doge is reportedly the one getting slashed. Did the cost-cutting initiative deliver results? We have the receipts. And thank you so much for being with us on this Monday night. I'm Blake Burman, back on the other side of the break, 4 minutes out. Hope to see you then.
We'll be taking all available legal action, including an immediate appeal, to hold Letitia James and James Comey accountable for their unlawful conduct.
That just moments ago, of course, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, responding after a judge dismissed the administration's cases against foes of President Trump, the former FBI Director James Comey and the New York Attorney General Letitia James. The judge tossing out the charges on grounds that Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor chosen by President Trump to bring the case, was appointed unlawfully. The judge said she should have been approved by Congress. The dismissed charges against Comey include making false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding, essentially lying to Congress. The dismissed charges against James include bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution dealing with a mortgage. James and Comey both maintain their innocence. They say this is all retaliatory. With me now, Jesse Weber, NewsNation legal contributor, host of the Law and Crime Network. Hello, sir. One of the interesting things about this is that the judge here basically cited what happened to Donald Trump as a reason to toss these cases for the moment, right?
Isn't that ironic? Yeah. So basically the argument was that if a prosecuting attorney is unlawfully appointed, anything they do afterwards has to be invalidated, has to be thrown out, meaning Lindsay Halligan. This is a pretty straightforward argument. I don't think this is much of a surprise, as much as it's not a surprise that Pam Bondi is going to fight this. I don't think there's much legs here because the rule is Lindsay Halligan wasn't nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. She was an interim attorney. When you have an interim U.S. attorney under the law, they can only serve in that position for 120 days. The problem for her was there was already an interim U.S. attorney before her, Eric Siebert, who resigned reportedly because he didn't want to bring the case against James and Comey. The clock had already ran out. So her appointment ran out of time. When that happens, the only way you can have a U.S. attorney in that position is if the district court appoints somebody or the president nominates somebody and they're confirmed by the Senate. Neither thing happened with Lindsay Halligan. The court said these indictments have to be thrown out. And like you said, with Jack Smith, his appointment was invalidated and his indictment was invalidated.
Full circle, I guess. James Comey, here was his reaction today.
This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. I don't care what your politics are, you have to see that as fundamentally un-American and a threat to the rule of law that keeps all of us free.
All right, so that was part of Comey's reaction. We already heard from Pam Bondi saying they're going to continue to pursue this. Let's take these one by one. The Comey case, does it go forward?
Okay, first of all, let me just say that his case wasn't thrown out on substantive grounds. So the idea of vindictive prosecution or a weak case, that's not the reason it was thrown out. The actual advantage for James Comey, the difference between him and Letitia James is there's a chance they might not even be able to refile the case against James Comey. Yes, the judge dismissed it without prejudice. Technically, it could be refiled. The problem is there's an argument that for the charges he's facing, the statute of limitations already ran out September 30th, so they might not even be able to bring the case. Letitia James, that's not the situation. There's no statute of limitations issue there.
So before you get there, here's what she said today. She said, quote, in part, I remain fearless in the face of these baseless charges as I continue fighting for New Yorkers every single day. Part of her reaction, Jesse, do they bring this? Do they continue on with this one?
Here's the thing. Let's say they find a U.S. attorney. Let's say they bring in Lindsay Halligan again. They nominate her. She's confirmed, or they bring in another U.S. attorney. I mean, who's going to bring this case? Remember, there was a whole battle here. There was a lot of U.S. attorneys. There was a lot of prosecutors who didn't want to bring the case against Comey and James because they didn't think it was strong enough. Looking at the substance of the case, there's a strong hesitation here about whether or not they can prove the intent behind bank fraud. So right now, yes, they can refile the charges. They can try to go to a grand jury. But will a prosecutor, will a U.S. attorney, whether it's Lindsay Halligan or somebody else, want to bring this case against Letitia James? We'll wait and see. There might be a hesitation there.
As they say over at the White House often, we'll see what happens. Jesse Weber, who basically just echoed the same thing. NewsNation contributor. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Catch you later. All right, still much more ahead. Here on the Hill, we are live in Puerto Rico as the nation's top general meets with U.S. troops. Is there a message there? Ahead of what could be a new phase of the war on cartels. And are the Doge days over? The reporting, the pushback, and how a NewsNation contributor nailed it when we return. All right, welcome back here on the Hill. Airlines canceling flights to Venezuela, and the nation's top general right now is on the ground in Puerto Rico as the U.S. military ramps up drills ahead of the Trump administration, which is keeping pressure on the Maduro regime. Now, the U.S. has been building its military presence, as you know by now, in that region, launching strikes to combat the flow of drugs into the U.S. Reuters is reporting tonight that an attempt to overthrow Maduro is one of the options on the table, something we've talked about for quite some time. No surprise there. Now, despite the tension over the weekend, Maduro sent a message to President Trump by doing this. dance there, calling for no war, apparently. Our Robert Sherman live in Puerto Rico, watching it all unfold for us tonight in the region there. Robert, there is all of this activity. It's drip, drip, drip.
Day by day, Blake, we have been watching as this pressure has been building up to this very moment, to the point now you have commercial aircraft that are being warned to steer clear of Venezuelan airspace, U.S. troops arriving here in the region. That includes where we are here in Puerto Rico, which is home to some key tactical airstrips where the staging, the building of military firepower has been ongoing even throughout the day here. And the chair of the Joint Chief of Staff on the ground here today. It sets the stage after you saw that major move coming in that we did anticipate, the foreign terrorist organization designation being given to the Cartel de los Soles, which the United States contends Nicolas Maduro is in charge of. He denies those claims, but you see the wanted poster on your screen here, $50 million reward for information that leads to his arrest. And despite the Venezuelan leader saying he's not involved, that has not stopped the United States from putting massive firepower here in the region. Carrier strike groups loaded with advanced aircraft, including F-35s. And what we have been seeing in the recent days, even this week, strikes carried out on alleged drug trafficking ships, at least 21 of them to date so far. And in terms of exactly where we go from here, the White House saying today, this will continue. Take a listen.
We view the Maduro regime as being illegitimate, and the president has been very satisfied with the successful strikes against narco-terrorists and foreign terrorists that are illegally trafficking drugs towards the United States of America. He's not going to tolerate that, and you can expect to see those strikes continue.
Venezuela has also been bolstering its own defenses, putting anti-air defense systems into the field of play, drilling, training. And they say they're prepared to carry out a guerrilla warfare-esque defense if it should come to that. Despite all the tough talk you've heard here, Blake, both Washington and Caracas have said they are hoping diplomacy ultimately prevails. Blake?
Robert Sherman live in the region for us tonight. Robert, thank you. Here with us now, retired Air Force General, Lieutenant General Brigadier General John Teichert. General, thanks for being with us tonight. You know how this goes better than I do. But at around holiday time, right, whether it be Christmas or Thanksgiving, either the Commander-in-Chief or the Secretary of War, we often see them sort of go somewhere, try to lift morale and talk to the troops. And the troops love it. It's great for everyone involved. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is down there in the region. And the official line is he's there to thank the troops. But what message do you think the administration is trying to send tonight?
Blake, I think for the last several weeks, the administration has been sending the same message that this region is their priority. That includes the armada that's amassed in the Caribbean Sea. That includes those Marines drilling in Trinidad and Tobago. That includes the foreign terrorist organization moniker, and now the chairman being in that area of responsibility. All of it sends a signal that this is the U.S.'s #1 priority, and we'll see if Maduro either takes the hint and steps aside, or the president feels compelled to use kinetic action against him.
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the region. Southern Command is restricting and limiting leave over Thanksgiving. The New York Times, Trump has signed off on covert operations. Do you think a decision on what to do has been made, General?
Blake, I do not. But two thoughts related to that. Number one, that you can't have that type of armada and not realize that there's an opportunity cost, that those assets aren't elsewhere. So that goes back to that priority comment. And number two, there's something that I call a credibility trap, where when you have escalated the rhetoric, when you have made threats, even if the president doesn't want to actually carry out those threats, his credibility may be on the line if he does not. And I think we're getting into a position where President Trump is going to feel, to some extent, to maintain his credibility, that he has to follow up those threats with actual action in the near future.
Cartel de los Soles, which the U.S. says is headed by Maduro, the main cartel down there, designated as a foreign terrorist organization. That is a State Department designation. What, if anything, does it mean potentially for the military going forward?
Blake, it does give authorities for legal and finance activities, but it also increases the priority of U.S. intelligence assets prioritizing and focusing on that region, and then some level of sharing of that intelligence amongst the whole of government armada that is arrayed there in that area. And
does that go to possible covert operations?
It does. So for sure, we are already no doubt engaging in covert operations, and now that designation raises the priority so that the intel community will feed that operation its priority intel above and beyond others.
Here was Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, earlier today, and then I'll pick it up with you on the other side. She said, "We view the Maduro regime as being illegitimate, and the president has been very satisfied with the successful strikes against the terrorists and foreign terrorists that are illegally trafficking drugs toward the United States of America." If that is the administration's view, he's not going to tolerate it, and you can expect to see those strikes continue. If there is action, and it's a big caveat, do we continue to see these drug boats leaving Venezuela and thus being struck?
Like, I found it interesting that she used the phrase, "the president is satisfied." That tells me that he's okay for the long term in plinking boats in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific and not actually doing something more with that armada that has been amassed. And I think using the phrase satisfied indicates that the status quo may be okay for the president, at least for now.
General John Teichert, once again, with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the perspective. We'll be watching, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again.
Sounds good, Blake. Thanks.
Of course. All right, meantime, an alarming trend on cancer now revealed. According to a new Gallup survey released today, almost 1 in 10 Americans say they have been diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, and that is not only a new high, it is stunning to hear. Cancer is expected to take more than 600,000 lives this year alone, and the race is on to find new ways to stop it. One of those doctors is leading the way in groundbreaking research.
What I think I want to do is get to the root cause so you can get a better outcome. So the idea is to cure cancer. Is there such a thing? You may ask. Well, I do believe so.
It is the conversation people all across this country are talking about. Killing cancer. Chris Cuomo. Tomorrow night, you'll see his special here. 10 o'clock Eastern. It will explore some of the latest breakthroughs in cancer research as scientists continue to pursue a cure. Still to come tonight. Elon Musk's Doge. Is it in doubt after reports that it shut down 8 months early? And without exactly cutting all that government spending it was promised to. So if Elon Musk can't rein it in, can anyone? Full panel. Other side.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw!
Well, thanks to your fantastic leadership, this amazing cabinet, and the very talented Doge team, I'm excited to announce that we anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion.
All right, well, questions tonight about the future of one of the most talked about 4-letter words or acronyms, Doge. The president's top personnel man pushing back tonight on a Reuters report that says Doge doesn't exist, saying it while it might not have centralized leadership, the principles remain alive and well. But is that what we were promised? Full panel here with me now. Domenico Montanaro is a senior political editor and correspondent for NPR. Lindsey Granger, double duty today?
Yes.
Double duty today. Co-host of Rising on the Hill, and T.W. Origi, former communications aide to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, VP Push Digital Group. Hello to you all.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in. Nice to see you. I was told, I don't know how long, that Elon Musk was the co-president, right, at the beginning of the administration, and this was talked about and talked about and talked about. The conversation now is, well, we don't have centralized leadership, but we're not shutting down, but the spirit is alive and well.
Well, so much has been personality driven. You know, I mean, it's hard to, really have somebody with the same kind of level of personality as Elon Musk and still continue to be able to push Doge. I mean, you've seen it in reverse with people like Russ Vought. I don't think has quite the personality of Elon Musk, but certainly gets things done in a different kind of way. But, it really sort of became this entity that was supposed to be cutting federal government, cutting money from the debt, and it really struggled to figure out how to do that, how to form a new government, and make it efficient going forward. And it really, I think, struggled in many ways. And then once Elon Musk saw his, his companies not doing as well as he wanted them to, he backed out.
Doge promised $2 trillion in savings at one point, claims to have slashed, if you go to their website, about $214 billion or so. According to reports, Newsweek, it actually saved maybe somewhere in the area of about $7 billion. Here's the thing, TW and Lindsay. Do you take any issue with what I'm about to say? Republicans who tell you that they are cutting spending and dealing with the debt are not telling you the truth. And Democrats who told you that they are cutting spending and care about the debt are not telling you the truth. If this didn't work, when are we ever going to deal with it? Because the national debt climbed $2.1 trillion in the last 12 months, TW.
Yeah, turns out it's very hard the size of government.
Okay.
And Elon Musk said that was his biggest takeaway, was just how hard it is. And I think the biggest lesson to be learned is Congress needs to get off its butt, realize the problem we're in with that with the deficit and debt, and act. Look, to shrink government and the amount of people that work in the federal government, we need civil service reform. Since Chester A. Arthur first enacted civil service reform, I've said this 1,000 times, it's gotten more and more onerous to remove people from the federal government. Elon Musk tried novel ideas that were thrown out in court. Congress needs to get off its butt and do it. Now, have they accomplished some good things?
You know what they did? $8 billion in rescissions.
Right.
That's like my kids saying, over 365 days, I ate one cookie less. You know what? You got cavities.
I agree, and I think there should be way more. And look, I think moving the ball forward is a good thing. I think we should bring back impoundment. I think we are totally out of whack here, but there are some good things they did. I think little things like re-examining our contracts and how we negotiate contracts, especially at the Pentagon, is really important. Making sure the Treasury is tracking all the money that is coming out of it. Those are good things, and hopefully they build on them.
And there are other people that analyze this Doge and what they've done, and they also spent a ton of money because to hire and fire people. There's some experts that say about $135 billion were spent going back and forth trying to figure out who was getting their job back and returning, and the numbers change for depending on who's looking at it, but it also wasn't as effective as possible. If you put those numbers together, what did they actually save? And I do think that you can't skip over the fact that the big beautiful bill is part of the reason why the debt was accumulated so much
but look at this, though. Total federal debt by year. Blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, up and to the right, nonstop.
But it's the thing nobody wants to talk about, which is entitlements. I mean, it makes up more than half the federal debt, and who wants to tackle that? Who's going to cut Medicaid? Who's going to cut Social Security? Who's going to change those limits to it? People would much rather push those things off than have to talk about it and win the next political fight.
I remember when
we did make an effort on one of them.
On which?
Bill.
On which?
On Medicare.
Yeah. Medicare, okay. Lindsay, Mick Mulvaney, basically 1 year to the day. If Mick's watching, shout out.
Shout out, Mick.
He said, fixing the federal bureaucracy is critical to the future health of our government and our nation, so I hope Doge succeeds, but Musk might discover that it's easier to start a colony on Mars.
Yeah, I remember when he was on the panel with me when we first talked about this, and he said he's never seen, or he knew that Elon Musk would leave with tucked tail from Washington, having had so much experience working there and knowing that Elon Musk came in as this powerful businessman. He said there's always somebody new. You rotate it, put a new person in there who thinks they can figure it all out, but Washington doesn't operate like business. Yeah. It's totally different.
$38.3 trillion and counting by the second is the debt right now. All right, also tonight, negotiators working around the clock to hammer out the details of the U.S.'s 28-point peace plan. Maybe it's a little less than that, maybe around 20 or so. Either way, they're trying to figure it out. The plan for Russia and Ukraine. The president's deadline, Thanksgiving. And here's what the White House said this afternoon.
Ultimately, the vast majority of these points have been agreed upon. The Ukrainians have worked on language with us together, and you heard that from their delegation directly yesterday. So we feel as though we're in a very good place.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been a particular challenge for the Trump administration. Will Putin and Zelensky meet Trump's Thanksgiving deadline is the question, Domenico. The experts that I talked to on this show think that we're still not toward the finish line portion of this, even though the administration is trying to get this done.
Well, I mean, they've gone back and forth as far as putting pressure on Zelensky, putting pressure on Putin. There's times when Trump is upset with Putin and then has a conversation with him and backs away from that, and then now wants, this plan in place that, could see parts of Ukraine go toward Russia, and a lot of people who are pro-Ukraine upset about Ukraine having to change how its army is situated, and really not much asked of Russia. But next week it could be Trump upset with Putin, and I think that there's a lot of people wondering, especially in NATO, which side is Trump on? What does he want? What does victory look like, and for whom does he want?
A lot of this feels like Europe versus Trump. Like, if you read what's coming out of Europe, like that's part of the position there.
Well, I mean, Europe certainly is locked in on wanting Ukraine to succeed and not wanting to see Russia encroach on any of the other countries. But Trump has his own sort of position on this, which is different than what the American position had been previously. That's kind of this America First foreign policy that is, I think, shaken up the Republican Party in many respects, too, because, seeing the death of Dick Cheney, for example, last week made me think about how interventionist, most of the Republican Party had been. The hawks in the party had dominated for so long. I don't know that a lot of people know what to do on the right with someone like Trump when he comes in and says, we're too entangled in a lot of these foreign wars.
You give the president a thumbs up, for lack of a better term, of saying, you know what, trying to put them on a clock and get it done because he's tried and tried and tried.
Well, it seems that the consistent aggression or the pressure falls on Zelensky's lap for some reason, when he's the victim and not the aggressor. And I think when you're looking at this plan, even Senator Mike Rounds was speaking to a group of people saying, oh, this was handed directly to us from Russia. And so the question is, how does the U.S. want to be remembered in this situation in forcing Putin to come to the table and actually realistically negotiate? Even though Putin has the upper hand right now because he's a more powerful nation, is that how we want to go out, is just saying that they handed us some propaganda and we said yes to it and did nothing when all of our European allies are asking us for something different?
Well, I think most Americans are happy that the president's fighting for peace instead of continuing a war with no discernible end goal. We're being told now years in that we need to keep funding it. And look, this deal isn't perfect, but it's a starting point, as we heard earlier in the show. We heard that great news has come out of Geneva, that they're engaging, that the Ukrainians are trying to work with us. President Trump came into this saying, I'm going to work for peace. And he's ending wars across the planet. He's trying here. I think most Americans are pretty happy to see that. And mind you, by the way, he has had a lot of bad things to say about Putin. And he's also hanging over Putin's head that 500% tariff that is hanging out in the Senate right now with Lindsey Graham. And he keeps saying, I like that bill, and if Putin doesn't act, 500% tariff on anybody who does business with Russia.
You worked at the Pentagon for a little while recently. Is it your sense that this is close to the finish line? Or is it moving closer?
I have no insight on that, so I can only base it off of what Rubio has said and what Caroline Leavitt said, and I believe it. I think most Americans, and I am happy to see them at the peace table trying to end this bloody conflict.
TW, Lindsay, Domenico, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Still to come. Here on the Hill, other side, President Trump's. he pardons a lot, right? That stuff's in the news. Well, why gobble and waddle are the next ones to come on the other side.
Now.
All right, if you're just getting home trying to catch up on today's top stories, here's some of what's happening right now over on thehill.com. Senate Republican says this: we can't afford $2,000 tariff checks. That's Ron Johnson coming out against the proposal to send money to working class Americans through money collected from tariffs. Johnson saying the federal government, as you see there, can't afford it. Also trending, a guide to Thanksgiving travel after the government shutdown. Safe to say there's plenty of nerves across the country about this, especially after the shutdown, But the transportation's Sean Duffy was out before the cameras today saying that Americans should be confident in their flight plans.
So, again, if you can still get a ticket and you can still fly and your family still wants to see you, book that ticket, jump on a flight, and don't be afraid to fly this season. Again, I can't control the weather. I can't control the mechanics of an airplane. but things look good from the air traffic control side.
And finally, how about this? ShamWow guy, you see that right, running for Texas House seat. Offervinch Shlomi, otherwise known as the ShamWow guy, filed to run as a Republican in Texas's 31st congressional district. You might know he gained national recognition during the 2000s as that high-energy ShamWow towel pitchman starring in the infomercials. Well, he will have to challenge the incumbent Republican Congressman John Carter, who has served more than 2 decades in that role. Getting into politics, potentially. We'll see. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. All right, time for my take on this Monday of Thanksgiving week. The question today wasn't why did the chicken cross the road? Rather, which are the turkeys and what are their names? Gobble and Waddle announced today as the lucky birds this year. Now, they will stay the night, get this, in one of the poshest D.C. hotels and receive a presidential pardon tomorrow. But they weren't the only ones on display today. The White House Christmas tree arriving via a Clydesdale-drawn carriage. The First Lady, Melania Trump, accepted the 18-and-a-half-foot tall beauty from Corson's Tree Farm in Michigan and seemingly eager to start decorating.
It was beautiful. Here at starting today.
So we leave you tonight with the sights that show we have the full holiday spirit on display here in this town. It is that time of year, and I hope that you are starting to feel some of it, at least, as well. Elizabeth Vargas reports coming up here in a second. She'll speak with the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, Rick Crawford, about President Trump and that big question regarding Venezuela. It is one of these top stories that we follow here on The Hill.